Resurrected Lords, and the Unkindled Ash. The influence of Pontiff at this point in the story has caused the world to begin to fall apart. As the fire fades, again the world changes. We see in this time the same exact thing that is taking place the first time the fire fades. The thing that terrifies Gwen. And so, the first signs of the fading fire, men become undead. They no longer stay in their graves. They become violent. Some begin to hollow, purposeless. The kingdom of Lothric begins to fall in the same way the previous kingdoms fell. And so, even though Lothric has existed for so long, through multiple ages of fire, it has been long enough that those currently living are not used to the presence of the undead. But it doesn't stop there. In a typical cycle, a Lord of Cinder rises, a great, mighty soul, and burns himself on the fire, sacrificing himself for his kingdom. But the influence of Pontiff, spreading the doctrine of the deep, Aldrich's doctrine, has influenced the kings, or the princes of this era, those who were supposed to light the flame, and they have refused, knowing the Age of Deep is coming, not caring for the continuation of their kingdom's power. And so, unlike a typical age, the universe seems to have something in place, a backup plan. And what the plan is that the previous lords, those who previously burned themselves on the fire, are resurrected again. And so, the last 4 are resurrected. Ludleth is brought back. Ludleth himself cannot go and light the flame. He says he would, but he can't, whether he truly desires to or not, and it would be implied, despite his own words, looking at his flavor text and his items and a few things he says while he sleeps, it would seem he did not desire originally to burn. But whether he desires it or not, he cannot go. He has no legs. His weakness is manifest, and Ludleth will not be the one to drag the twin princes to the flame and burn their soul. The Abyss Watchers are raised as well. But upon their resurrection, the Abyss Watchers were buried above the tomb. Whether it was on purpose, whether it was symbolic, the Abyss Watchers were raised, or were buried and raised, over the tomb of High Lord Wolnir. Wolnir was a great conquering king who would do anything for power. When we look at his tomb, it's reminiscent of the pharaohs of Egypt, who commanded so much power and devotion that even the living were buried with them to serve in the world to come. But it would seem Wolnir was corrupted by the Abyss, and so the Abyss Watchers, being buried above them, may have been a bad idea. Wolnir's soul is captured in a vessel. The Abyss infects this skull. But the proximity to this tomb infects the Abyss Watchers. The Lords of Cinder are not like the hollow undead who have no purpose and are empty. They are who they were at their core in their first lives. And so, the Abyss Watchers still have the desire to destroy the Abyss. But when they awaken together, they only see the Abyss in the other member of their troop. And so while the Abyss Watchers may have desired to light the flame, we will never know because they are so distracted with the destruction of each other that when we find them as the player character, even as we walk in the room, they do not stop attempting to destroy one another. And so the Abyss Watchers cannot light the flame. They cannot drag the souls of the princes to the fire. Wolnir, Yorm, who gave himself to this capital, to this city sacrificially, to the point where his very character changed and he became reckless, knew he was despised, but still righteously gave himself for this people, returns to a city that is destroyed by the very thing he spent his life to put out. When he burned his soul, his purpose was to protect his capital, to be the good king, to control the flame. And it would seem it worked for a time. We're not told how or why, but we know it worked. But upon returning to his kingdom, he sees the devastation wrought, and it is clear it is from the thing he spent his soul on. And so Yorm sits down on his broken throne, heartbroken and lonely, refusing to light the flame. Aldrich was unwilling to light the flame before, but the universe doesn't care who it resurrects, so it resurrects him again. Aldrich is the head of the Church of the Deep, as one who founded its current doctrines, who corrupted the church, is being given a sacrifice. Gwendolyn, one of the few remaining gods hidden away in Anor Londo, is captured by Pontiff Sullivan and fed to Aldrich, further increasing his power. Sullivan doesn't seem to care. Sullivan is about his own business, spreading the influence of the church, and so oddly enough, it would seem, through various flavor texts, that Sullivan himself is now using Aldrich to further spread the doctrine Aldrich himself began, that Pontiff gains power from, being the influence in the current head of the Church of the Deep. And so, every single lord of the four that had burned themselves on the fire cannot, will not drag the souls of the princes as they are meant to, kicking and screaming to the fire. And so, the universe has a last line of defense. When those who succeeded in lighting the flame cannot succeed. It raises ash. Our player character wakes up in a world that is devastated, where the lords refuse to come. Wakes up as one who could not light the flame, who tried in a previous age, and we find from traveling back in time, we find our own corpse, and we find that our character died in the service of the Queen of Lothric in a previous age and failed to light it. But the universe gives us another chance to serve, where we ourselves may not burn our own burning soul on the fire. We grow in strength. We gather souls. Even traveling back to eras, finding our own body in a tomb, seeing our history and past, gathering souls throughout eras. We eventually get to Prince Lothric and Prince Lorien, where others could not, in their natural strength. We are a soul pariah. We gather souls, small and great, slowly gaining power, and we overwhelm everything in front of us. The lords try to stop us. They cannot. Pontiff tries to stop us, sending his Outrider Knights to stop us, protecting ancient relics to stop us. Nothing can stop us. We travel back in time, get even more powerful. We are so similar to the original Pygmy. We are so similar to the original champion, undead champion from Dark Souls 1. We cannot be stopped. There's something special about us. We're able to travel through time in this era where the fire fades and where heroes can move about. We gain power, and eventually we arrive with Lothric and Lorien. Kill them, take their soul, drag it back to the thrones, light them all. It is at this time where something unique happens. Something that is missed so often in this game. As the fire is fading, our character moves forward in time. We enter the kiln of the first flame, where we will summon the soul of cinder. But as we look about the kiln, we realize the nature of the flame is that it holds the world in a different way than we anticipated. It is not about time. Individuals, champions, travel throughout time through Dark Souls, but the universe has a consistent timeline that cannot change. And so, as the fire is fading for its last time, because this is a unique time period, the deep is coming. You have light, dark, and the deep, something that's never existed. This is a unique event. The universe itself seems to fall in on itself. This is important to remember because this visual is supposed to teach us something about the DLC, which we will talk about. In the end, we summon the Soul of Cinder, but not before we fall into the plot of Gale and travel to the Ringed City.